It's my pleasure to be with you, and let me start by extending my sincere gratitude to the Director of Press for giving me this opportunity to have this meeting with you after the day is long spent. It's some few minutes to 5 already, and as you do know, so many things can happen towards the end of the day. Just less than 24 hours ago, during the wee hours of the World Cup match, we thought it was all over until Super Eagles demonstrated that there is indeed some kind of belief in renewing our hopes. And they did that so well, and all Nigerians are happy that indeed we are getting towards the critical stage of the World Cup qualifiers with a renewed spirit, hoping that we will hoist our flag in the 2026 World Cup. I am going to disappoint you a little bit because of the teaser that the Director of Press has given to you. I am not here to talk about revenue, basically. But of course, if there are issues that we need to talk about revenue, in the course of this, we will because of its importance. But you will all recall that some 3 months ago, Mr. President renewed my mandate by giving an extension to my service years. And in the document conveying that extension, some particular KPIs were specifically mentioned. One of them is the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has made it very, very clear about the intention of his administration to use trade to promote economic development, to alleviate poverty, seeing the potentials that we have in trade. And when you see it in the policy trust documents, you will see specific policies that speak towards the promotion of trade, or Nigeria reestablishing itself as a trade hub. That policy trust talked about the fact that we need to decongest our port areas. We need to make more investment in port infrastructures. We need to start and join the League of Customs Administrations and countries that are using or leveraging on single window. These are all elements that speak to one major issue, that we need to give more attention to the issue of trade. And so I was not surprised when the implementation of the Continental Free Trade was specifically mentioned in the document. And 3 months on, what have we been doing? I have been in touch, very active engagement with my colleagues, customs administrations in Africa, to let them understand the importance that customs plays in the implementation of the AfCFTA. Earlier in the week, I was in Ghana, last week actually, I was in Ghana to have a brief meeting with the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area to let him understand that, in fact, customs is now ready to play its role, to fulfill its mandate in the implementation of the regional economic grouping. Basically, when customs implement a free trade agreement, just like any other integration agreement, there are issues that has to do with implementing the rules of origin or the trade preferences, suspending customs duty on trade between members of the same economic bloc. This time we are talking of the rest of the continent of Africa. So it requires capacity building. it requires a very strong political will on the side of the various countries to implement the trade agreement. Because, like I said earlier, it involves suspension of customs duties. They will have to give up some part of customs duties. They've gradually reduced them until it comes to zero, so that goods produced within Africa can be traded between African countries. What our experience has been over the years is that even at the regional level, the economic integration initiative has been bedeviled with some implementation challenges. I know that Nigeria is an active participant in the ETLS program, ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, but we cannot say the same for the 14 other countries of ECOWAS. Well, if you remove those 3 countries who now constitute the Sahelian states. There is some modest level of success in the eastern flank, the East and Central Africa. The Northern African sector is even more complicated because most of the time they deal more with the fellow Arab countries across the continent of Africa, those in the Maghreb area and those in the Middle East. So the real blocks that are really trading are these 2 regions, West and Central Africa, and then the East and Central, East and Southern Africa. Over the last 2 years as Comptroller General of Customs, I have attended so many programs organized by the African Continental Free Trade, because they have the mandates to implement it, and the Afrexim Bank, which is the bank that takes responsibility for the payment system. However, my experience in all those activities has shown that there is a major gap. And that gap is that customs has not been integrated enough in the implementation of the AfCFTA. And I continued my engagement with them. I made these points in all the programs that I attended, that we now need to bring this conversation. We need to bring customs, heads of customs, into these conversations about the implementation of the regional trade agreement. And gradually the idea gained traction. And this is what has led to the initiatives of the concept of partnerships for African, the Sea Pact. In terms of getting the internal support that we have, that we need for this, the logical beginning point is Mr. President. And like I mentioned, because he is very, very intentional in using trade as an instrument of economic growth, we did not have any problem to secure the presidential endorsement that we have for this idea of forging partnerships between customs administrations and all the institutions and organizations and economic operators that would be instrumental in the implementation of AfCFTA. So after securing the endorsement of Mr. President, the next logical conclusion is to also to rally around the national actors that are involved. Of course, you know that very, very recently, Nigeria was proclaimed the hosts of the next intra-African trade. And this is also coming after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was proclaimed the champion of intra-African trade in services. Leveraging on all this, we also needed to mobilize the internal actors. And the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment has been very, very key in not only endorsing this idea, but also talking to colleagues in other African countries. So as we are engaging with our minister, we are also having similar engagements with ministers of trade of other African countries. Of course, the agencies that are superintending cross-border trade in Nigeria are also supporting these initiatives. In the last 2 years, export volume, export trade, not necessarily the direction of Africa, has increased by over 30% in terms of volume. And we felt that it is now time for us to redirect this trade into African countries so that we can optimally benefit from the large markets of over 1 billion people. So we have all the agencies, the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, the Nigerian Import-Export Bank, our commercial banks, the Nigerian Port Authorities. These are all agencies that have been collaborating with us to play our role in the port as the lead agency for cross-border trade. And across our borders, we are in very active engagement with international organizations that are very, very key to this. I'd already talked about AfCFTA. I've talked about the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade. But the World Customs Organization, which I'm privileged, whose council I'm privileged to chair, has also been very, very supportive of this initiative. For the first time, we are going to be playing hosts to the Secretary General of the World Customs Organization, here at Saunders. He would be here throughout the period of the conference. He would deliver a keynote on Tuesday, the second day, and he will also participate actively in other side meetings and engagement. As we speak, we already have confirmed registration from about 30 African customs administrations. Out of these 30, 22 of them are at the Director General's level. Others are represented. But what gave me more excitement is not about the number, but about the representation. So now we have confirmation of participation from West and Central Africa. We have those coming from East and South Africa, and then those that are coming from the North. Because our experience has shown that when we trade goods from one part of the continent and you accord these goods all the concessions, that all the preferences that they can get under a free trade arrangement, most of the time when these goods get to the destination country, they do not get the same kind of concessions. And this has created a problem for us. But beyond customs, we are also inviting economic operators that are involved in managing cross-border trade in Africa. So we have confirmed representation from service providers, logistics providers, airlines, shipping companies, manufacturers, investors, port administrators from across Africa. And from the look of things, when we did the numbers, we've discovered that we had more private sector operatives who have registered for this conference more than those in public sectors. Governments don't trade. Customs don't trade. The banks will not trade. But it is the economic operators that we trade. And they are the ones that these instruments of free trade are designed for. And we are happy that they have embraced the initiatives and they are going to be with us. Let me conclude. This has gone beyond the KPI of the Comptroller General of Customs. In my conversation with the Minister of Trade and Investments, and who has really supported this initiative. She has also said that this is one conference that can help her in the delivery of her mandates. The same with the minister, the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister for the Economy, who has also seen this as part of efforts, national efforts, to reposition Nigerian trade and to show our readiness for Africa. On this note, I would sincerely request your assistance, your cooperation, your support, your guidance in hosting the rest of Africa. We want to do a conference that is slightly different from the normal. On Monday, for example, our intention, instead of starting with delivery of papers and all of that, we really want to start with the private sector. We want to take a deep dive into their operations, understand the challenges that they are facing in trading across Africa. We've invited people from different parts of Africa so that they will come to talk to customs and the policy makers on their challenges, the frustrations they have, the continued retention of some non-tariff barriers to trade, which we also know about. And we are not shy to admit that there are some problems here and there. And it's not just going to be a Nigerian issue, it's also something that will speak to what is happening in other parts of the continent. So we therefore call for your support. We need your guidance, and we need that you bring this to the attention of Nigerians so that we will all fully realize and key into the potentials that trade offers in our economy. I thank you very much, and if there are questions, I would be willing to take it. But before anybody asks us about our revenue performance, let me use this opportunity to say that over the years, revenue has been a key performance indicator in our operations. Over the past 2 years, we have shown that we actually have other mandates that we do, and that we can make the best of that. We can, be the very best in discharging our mandates in those other areas: national security and trade facilitation. And a number of tools specifically have been designed to help us facilitate trade and enhance national security. I'm happy. I will just make one statement about the fact that these tools and instruments have been very, very impactful. Apart from the fact that the ranking agencies say that customs is the most improved agency in the ease of doing business, we've also seen remarkable seizures that we have made, seizures of drugs, seizures of arms and ammunition here and there. The totality of this has also translated into more revenue for us, such that in 2023, my first year, we had over 70% increase in revenue. In the second year, we have 101% increase in revenue. We're already counting by what percentage we are going to surpass the one for 2025. So there are, in any regional economic grouping, parties to the protocols on those groupings always agree that there will be a degree of suspension of customs duties on what they trade amongst themselves. The ultimate objective of AfCFTA is to create a free market, a continental-wide free market. And what they are doing is to use the existing regional groupings as the building block to achieve the continental free trade. So there is no doubt about it that you cannot eat your cake and have it. And this is also related to the issue raised by my brother from NTA So there are trade-offs normally. When you collect revenue, when you collect revenue, customs revenue, or any revenue for that matter, they are diverted to provide social services, infrastructures. You use them in health, you use them in education, and things like that. But then, if you also encourage the citizens to trade, especially across the borders, the benefits that comes from trade is quite huge. Trade has been known over the years to be the source of economic prosperity. So when you talk about some of the richest people in Africa, in our society, most of them made their fortunes from trade. So it is a trade-off. So we either say, yes, we collect a lot of money and we do not allow people to trade, or we maintain some kind of healthy balance. So the market is not only in Africa. So in all of these, AfCFTA is not asking us to constitute ourselves into an autarky. It's not saying that we should not trade with the rest of the world. But what the the free trade area in Africa is saying is that let us have more of African countries trading within themselves. Because it does make a lot of sense that if we can take our sesame seeds to Kenya, the logistics cost is expected to be lower. We will, people who are buying in Kenya will not have to convert Kenyan shillings into dollar before they access, the Sesame Street in Nigeria. So these are all the ideas, the lofty ideas behind the fact that we needed to trade within ourselves. The suspension of customs duty is to liberalize the market and provide these goods that are produced in Africa market access everywhere in Africa. And I think it does make some sense because by the time we started checking, as at 2023, 2024, the biggest direction of exports from Nigeria is African countries. This is the statistics that we got from NBS, and this is what the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is asking us to leverage on so that we remove all barriers, non-tariff barriers, so that more of Nigerians, especially our SMEs, who are now doing very well, can enjoy free access to these markets in Africa and make the maximum benefit from trade. I'm always very happy to announce that when we launched the Authorized Economic Operator program in Nigeria, which is like a VIP system for people that are involved in cross-border trade, we were deliberate to ensure that we have 2 SMEs as amongst our pilot 6 companies. And we're happy that those 2 companies are doing very well now. They already have, they've opened access into East African market, Southern African market. Some of them, what they sell are things like handcraft, women bags, women shoes, leather works. Some of them sell kilishi meats that's, might look ordinary, shredded meats. It is relished in so many African countries, and we have producers of these items that are taking them to other parts of the world. Hibiscus flower, which we call zobo, is doing so well in so many African countries now. And if you are seeing the numbers, the export volume growing, it is because more Nigerian SMEs companies are tapping into this. The issues of de minimis, always a very tricky word, is to show that Nigeria Customs Service has really embraced the reality that we needed to review the threshold that we needed to collect customs duty on when people travel. So Nigerians love to travel. When they are coming back, they buy things, they buy gift items, they buy all sorts for their people. What our law said before was the equivalent of 50,000 naira. So once your things goes beyond 50,000 naira, you are expected to pay duty. But we know over the years, because of the devaluation of the currency, we know that 50,000 is next to nothing. And that is what has created issues when people arrive at our border stations or at airports, and we ask them to pay duties on what they are bringing in. Now, there's a difference between personal effects and other items. When it is personal effect, we know that these are things that are on you. Your dress, your clothes, and things like, subject to a reasonable quantity. So you come in with 10 pairs of shoes, and 4 of them are size 43. 2 is size 40. 1 is size 39. Then this is no longer the shoe that you are going to wear. Well, you might say gifts for people and things like that. If you are in a position to buy gifts for that number of people, then we don't count it as personal effect again. So this is why the customs actually requested the Ministry of Finance to take a second look at the threshold value, because the 50,000 naira was no longer realistic. And that was why that new threshold of 300 equivalent of 300 US dollars is now the threshold. So if you show up at any customs arrival port with anything valued over 300 US dollars, it is expected that you will pay duty. As for powers that are interested in resources in Africa, maybe we are looking at the second round of colonialism. It's no longer neo-colonialism, because these guys are coming in droves, they're coming in big numbers. But that is the reality of globalization. I am not too sure there's anything we can do apart from this kind of idea of trading within the continent itself. So if we see market opportunities for us, and we streamline the process, we make it easier. I don't have to change naira to dollar to trade. I don't have to take my goods to Paris, and the goods are destined for South Africa. It means that Africans are beginning to really embrace, we are beginning to see the reality, and we know that it's better that we let our charity begin at home and take measures that would ensure the growth of intra-African trade. We are not scared that conversations, from next week, even if we have our partners that are coming from other parts of the world. We've had registration from about 4 European embassies, for example, and we can understand this. We can still learn the best from some of these partners. To date, the most successful economic integration problem, arguably, is the European Union's. And what we have done over the years, when we are looking at the issue of capacity building, we always get it from the European Union. Because as far back as the Treaty of Rome 1956, they've been managing, economic integration issues. It started from between those only 2 countries, Germany and France. And then it expanded, at a time, it became the largest single economic bloc in the world. So we collaborate with them, we learn the best with them, but we shine our eyes. What are the other ones? Key takeaways from the conference. The most important takeaway for us will be a shared vision that customs plays a strategic role in the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and we are going to be having the platform to engage with the economic operators, with other customs administrations, so that we create the structure moving forward, so that we'll be able to have that, manage those conversations within us, understanding, creating an opportunity for us to understand what private sector wants from us, so that we'll be able to attend to their needs. So basically, these are the issues, and I'm very sure that by next week, when you see my colleagues from other customs administration, the challenges, their experiences are fairly similar. Even in the so-called advanced part of Africa, South Africa, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, they also have these issues when it comes to implementation of the African Continental Free Trade. And this is why we felt that, look, for once, let's bring all of us under one umbrella. the owners of the financial platform AfriEximBank, the owners of the tools for free trade, which is the AfCFTA Secretariat, the economic operators, the ministers of trade, and all of them, we come under one roof, and then we discuss on how we can move African trade forward.
Thank you very much, sir. Second batch, 3. Channels takes the first one, AIT the second one, and ITV the third one. And
in terms of those goods, when you trade, in the international, under international trade, what you sell to me as raw material, for you, when it comes to me, it's a raw material, but it is a finished product for you. When it gets to me, I might add some other things to it and then transform it into another product. So if you take a mobile phone, for example, we have a lot of semiconductors that are, or ICs that are put together before the engine is done. So under international trade, when you talk about free trade agreements, the most operative word is the origin. So what kind of transformation the good has undergone in your place before you trade them in the international community. So the more the transformation, the less duty it would attract in the destination places. So if, for example, you have goods that is 100% produced in Nigeria, you did not have any inputs into it. So African countries will give such goods the benefit of a complete free access. So such goods will be 0%. But when the transformation is not complete, when it is partial, it is not expected to attract that kind of lower duty. Under AfCFTA, it is the conversation is between 10 and 0%. And as the year goes by, as we get more into the trade, the intention is that we will be gradually reducing those rates until all the goods that we trade under the agreement will be zero rated. That's the way it works. It's a little bit complicated, and from our experience in ECOWAS, there is also a compensation mechanism. A fund is specifically created so that when you import and you do not collect duties on them, there is a fund created at the ECOWAS Secretariat, for example, for ETLS, which is also collected and distributed amongst member states as a kind of compensation. They call it a compensation fund. So it's not as if we close their eyes completely, but in terms of numbers, it is insignificant. CPAC represents what we want to achieve when we bring customs administrations together under one roof to take action to improve African trade, to forge partnerships, to put bridges across all the various elements that are involved in trade. It is basically the initiative of Nigeria because we want to key into what Mr. President has identified as a deliberate policy thrust to ensure that Nigeria becomes the hub of trade in Africa. So customs is positioning itself as an agent of that revolution in African trade.
Good evening, CG. My name is Prof. Simon, and I work with Channel.
This conference was ending. We're now beginning to see very, very interesting issues and debates, particularly the last 3 questions. And I think, in a way, they are all related. When we talked about trade agreements, how do we ensure that our markets do not become dumping grounds? How do we manage free access to get goods that are produced in some other places where possibly the competitive advantage is higher, either because of higher level of infrastructure and all of that? We understand that. Customs Pact is not going to rewrite an agreement that has been signed and domesticated. We are not rewriting that agreement. That agreement has been on ground. And I agree with what you said. We were late entrants into this. In fact, Nigeria had everything to have hosted the Secretariat in 2019, but because of what you mentioned, there was a pushback from Nigeria because Manufacturers Association of Nigeria said, look, let's take a second look at some of these issues that you have raised, the issue of dumping and things like that. But the truth is that the rest of the world, the rest of the continent will not wait if you choose not to participate in trade. The trade war, those who are flexing muscles in the last few months, they've been doing it, but it has not stopped trades in other parts of the world. Whether we like it or not, those who will benefit from trade will still benefit from trade. There are measures that have been put in place in the agreement to address the issue of dumping. One of them is the origin, the management of origin. I've explained, I've taken my time to explain it, and that is one of the ways in which you can ensure that goods manufactured from third countries are not dumped in your country. The most important thing, the game changer there, is origin, understanding the origin. And I talked about the fact that that is one major challenge that we have, to raise the capacity of our officers, of our operators, economic operators, in the issue of the rules of origin, because it's a bit complicated. And I explain it because goods must undertake some level of transformation before they can be qualified to be traded under African continental free trade. So the responsibility, the challenge of that implementation is not just for Nigeria Customs Service, because as we are taking goods into us, as we are trading, as we are buying from other African countries, don't forget that the biggest manufacturing hub is here in Nigeria. We are also making forays into those markets. For those of you that have traveled across the sub-region, the West African sub-region, for example, you will see that most of their basic manufactured items are those that were done in Nigeria. That is the truth. We can't argue with that fact. So it's about all the various customs administration implementing the principles of the rule, governing the rules of origin in a very equal way. But the point to note is that over the years, even during wars, some laws are made that, oh, look, don't tamper with these trade routes. Some may even go and pay some taxes to some warlords so that trade will be protected. You know, from all the places where you have the great wars, you also have trade routes across those places. So that tells you the importance of trade from prehistoric time. So even if we hold back, even if we say we are not participating in it, some other African countries will participate. And you will remember that the first shipment under AfCFTA was from Ghana to Rwanda. And that has continued ever since. We are just entering the fray. Our companies are now enjoying the benefits. But as they are giving us free access in those markets, we also have an obligation when they want to sell in our markets to give them. But the good thing about Nigeria's own is that the only problem they have is about scaling up. Otherwise, we have the market to absorb whatever they manufacture. So you have two choices. you either sell locally, or when you manufacture enough and you want to scale up, then you have the ability to sell to the rest of the continent. The Grey List was an infamous list which Nigeria was added 2019, 2020. And there were a number of issues that led us into it. I don't want to revisit it. But the question being asked is, what do we do as an agency, customs, to consolidate and to avoid a situation where we get back into that list? I'm happy you mentioned one of them. Technology is one. Technology helps a lot. And one of the things we have done with technology is to deploy the electronic currency declaration form. So before, when you arrive or when you are departing, our officers, pursue you all over the places with one green and white form for you to fill. Now we have automated that. At any of our departure places, you now have a barcode, you scan it, and then the form is downloaded, and then you can fill it, and one time the data is sent to NFIU and AFCC for further processing. We have made this easier because, very, very easily you can now fill that form. The next level we are taking this form is to see how we can merge it with immigration, so that the new arrival form that immigration is proposing, when we merge these two forms, you will not necessarily have to finish filling one form with immigration and then come to customs again. So we are trying to see how we can merge these two forms so that it creates a better user experience for people. Technology is also about using non-intrusive technology at our various ports. Most of the time, what you see are desks like this where our officers open. But build up towards the last inspection, 3 major ports, we now deployed use of scanners at our arrival ports. So in Kano, we have functional scanner. At Abuja Airport, we have, and at the lower floor at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, we are also having those scanners that are functional. But beyond what one agency can do, the lessons that we learned from our exit this year is the power of coordination. It's about all of the agencies who are working in these ports to come together under a very strong partnership, synergy, and under the coordination of one agency. And this was our experience working under the Office of the National Security Advisor, the Ministry of Finance, the Attorney General of the Federation, that has provided all the agencies the leadership that we need, the coordination that we need to ensure that we do not work at cross purposes when you see us, when you arrive at any of our ports. So it goes beyond what one agency will do. It speaks to the power that we can derive when we all work together. Emperor Simon, the emperor whose empire we do not know, talk about what ways we can avoid delays in our ports as part of this greater conversation, making our ports more friendly, making our ports more effective. One of the things we have actually done was to put in place a scientific study to measure how much and how long it takes to clear goods in our ports. It is a tool of the World Customs Organization, which members can use to measure how facilitating they are in their operations. The gentleman seated next to me, DCG Dera Nadi, had the privilege of heading the team that conducted a TRS, time release study, in Tinkan Island port last year. And the number, well, of course, we are going to launch this very, very soon. We are going to release the result very soon, but the result has been validated by operators, by agencies of government that participated, and of course, by the World Customs Organization. And we are not talking of 7 days, as you mentioned, to clear your goods out of customs control. What that TRS shows us is that it is much, much, much lower. But without mentioning any number now, it also goes back to the same issue that you mentioned, that it takes all of our agencies in the port together to create a better experience for our port users. You cannot clap with one hand. It does not make any sense if customs releases it out of our control and then it gets hooked up with another agencies of government. But most of the time, people only know customs. They will say, oh, it is still in the port, it is still being held by customs. So one of the most important recommendations that we made in that study is that we now need to increase the level of coordination and cooperation that we have amongst all those agencies. And one of the ways we can do that is what you mentioned, the deployment of the national single window. We are hoping that in Q1 2026, this will come fully on steam and we'll be able to put all the delays of the past behind us. I thank you for those who ask questions. For those who are unable to ask questions, this conversation can continue on Monday during the conference itself. I thank you for your attention.